All right, everybody. I'd like to say thank you so much for all the support you have been giving me on these Facebook videos and YouTube videos. Let's get right on into it. When did professional sports decide to come to the state of Texas, and why did it go to Dallas? Professional sports came in the state of Texas in 1960. They had it here to try it out in 1952. Mr. Rumenfeld, who came here, was called a Houston Texan. They did not win any game. They only stayed 1 year before Mr. Humenfield took his team out of Dallas and took it to Baltimore, and it became the Baltimore Colts. But the name Texan remained to be up for sale until 1960, when Mr. Lamar Hunt bought the name Texan. And when the NFL came to Texas, it went to Dallas. Why? Because it went to Dallas? Because Dallas was more of a metropolitan city than Houston. Houston was not as large as Dallas at that particular time. And Houston was not a major force in the state of Texas, because Houston did not want all of this racketeering and to be part of the type of atmosphere that New York and Chicago and Detroit and the other metropolitan cities. Houston did not want to have that kind of identity. So therefore, Dallas is where they lined up going. And when they first came in, they told Lamar Hunt that he couldn't buy the team. The reason why they didn't want to sell it to Lamar Hunt, because they wanted to have control to make sure that it wouldn't be no segregation, it would be no problem that would affect the NFL. So Mr. Clinton Munchins and his brothers bought the team and was going to be in the background and let Tex Stram be the president of the team. And a little rundown about Tex Stram. Tex Stram was the Los Angeles Rams president. It was Tex Stram who hired Pete Rozelle to be the LA PR man. And the reason why, and it was Pete Rozelle who got all of the entertainers such as Marilyn Monroe and John Wayne and all the big time movie stars and entertainment, and Frank Sinatra, got all them people to come out and start getting involved with sports. And they got involved with the Los Angeles Rams, thanks to Mr. Pete Rozelle. So in 1958 is when the NFL made a move on Major League Baseball, because before then it was all about baseball. You didn't hear no broadcasting on radio about no football. And before television, it was only radio that broadcast the World Series and all of the baseball games of the Yankees and the Brooklyn Dodgers and so on. It never was about football up until 1958, when football made its impact on major sports. It was the New York Giants and the Baltimore Colts that made the opening for NFL to move closer to Major League Baseball. And the New York Giants was a predominant era in football in the 50s. Because number one, you had the coach Howard had one of the best coaching staff it ever have been in the NFL. He had as an offensive coordinator, he had Mr. Vince Lombardi. For a defensive coordinator, he had Mr. Tom Landry. And it was Tom Landry was the only defensive coordinator that could slow down Jim Brown during them eras that Jim Brown was so good. So therefore, in 1958, the Baltimore Colts got upset. They upset the New York Giants, the heavily favored New York Giants. And at this time, the commissioner of the NFL was Bert Bell. And Bert Bell seen that the NFL was going in a new direction. and he was getting old. He started the NFL way back in the day. And therefore, it was Tex Stram who seen how good Pete Rozelle did such a good job on promoting the Los Angeles Rams that maybe he could do a good job on promoting in the NFL. So then they nominated Pete Rozelle to be the NFL commissioner in 1959. And it was Pete Rozelle who helped promote the NFL to what they are today. Because before Pete Rozelle, you couldn't buy no NFL gear. You couldn't buy no NFL hat and caps or nothing. You couldn't buy no major league sports equipment as far as promoting the team. It was Pete Rozelle that promoted the NFL. But you remember, Pete Rozelle got started through Tex Stram. Anyway, when they decided to give the NFL a team in the South, because Dallas was the first team to go in the South in the NFL. Then they decided, let's put it under the influence of Mr. Tex Stram, because he know how to put a winning team together. He know how to put a winning franchise together. Plus, Tex Stram also know what the NFL want out of a franchise. And when they first got the team, the Mutchins brothers, Clinton Mutchins and his brother, they wanted to stay in the background and let Tex Stram run everything. That's the reason why when you seen Super Bowls that were won by the Dallas Cowboys, you never seen nobody but Tex Stram and Tom Landry. So when Tex Stram took over as president, the first thing he did was contact the New York Giants and got Tom Landry to be the coach of the team. And it would always be about Tom Landry and Tex Stram. And when Tex Stram brought in Tom Landry and they decided to go with the team, it was then that they had to come up with a name. The Munchins and most of the people in Dallas that didn't know nothing about football and didn't know nothing about major sports and the business of it, they didn't know what they were doing. They wanted to call the team the Dallas Steers. They said no. Then they decided to call the Dallas new franchise the Dallas Rangers. They said no. And then Tex Stram said that we going to name it the Cowboys, because the Cowboys and Indians was all you used to see on TV. And the Washington Redskins was a big rivalry for Tom Landry and Tex Stram. So they decided to say the Dallas Cowboys going to be the name of the new franchise. And therefore, when Tex Stram and Tom Landry put this team together and put it in motion, now Lamar Hunt on the other side of Dallas, family was filthy rich, as they still are. He found out that he couldn't buy the franchise, but he owned the rights of the Texan, so they couldn't use it. So Tex Stram and Tom Landry named it the Dallas Cowboys. And Lamar Hunt decided to bring his own team. That's why you see me with a Kansas City jersey, because the team before they moved to Kansas City was called the Dallas Texan. That's why you got the Houston Texans got that same name today. And they bought that name from the Hunt family, because the Hunt family bought it from the old Dallas Texan, the Holenberg family, who had it when it was called the Dallas Stars. And when it was called the Dallas Texans before they moved to Baltimore. But anyway, let's go back to the Star. And everybody want to know about the Star. The Star means the Lone Star of Texas. That's why the Cowboys got a star in Dallas, and Houston has a star here in Houston at the Astros. And the Star is the Lone Star State. That's why it's so important that you don't cover up your Lone Star State license plates. It's against the law, because they want and be proud of the Lone Star. And the Lone Star is the only star. Let's go why. Texas is called the Lone Star State of Texas, of the United States, because it's the only star on the United States flag that can stand alone. Texas do not need nothing. Texas is a country by itself that once was Mexico. And that's why we don't need any oil. We got oil here. They found oil out there in the Gulf by Port Arthur when they had the spindle top. We got agriculture and vegetables and also fruit and stuff in the valley down there by Brownsville. And also you got cattle and cows and beef all up and down Fort Worth and all up and down Texas. So we got our own food. I got our own oil. So we don't need other parts of the country. That's why we are the Lone Star. It means exactly what it states. It's the only star on the flag can stand alone. That's why it's the Lone Star State. When the franchise came here and Mr. Adams in 1960, Mr. Adams and Mr. Lamar Hunt, because Lamar Hunt was upset because he couldn't buy the Dallas Cowboys, and he refused to sell them that name. He decided to bring his own his own major league. Let's say he decided to bring his own professional football team. In fact, he decided to bring another league in to compete against the NFL, which was the AFL. But now Texas is part of a major league sport, football, NFL. And this is way before it was a Super Bowl. And when Tex Stram took over, and why he decided to get Tom Landry, because the New York Giants had an offense coordinator, Vince Lombardi, and the defense coordinator was Tom Landry, and Vince Lombardi was already taken by the Green Bay Packers, and Tom Landry was up. So therefore, Tex Stram went with Tom Landry. And therefore, when the Cowboys always played the Green Bay Packers, and what really made football seem that Pete Rozelle was doing such a good job, because when the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys played in the Ice Bowl, this is before a Super Bowl, it was such a big event for the World Championship. And it was Vince Lombardi and Tom Landry who really put NFL on top. That's why you have a trophy that's called Vince Lombardi. And it was Lamar Hunt who put the American League survivors up on top to merge in with the NFL, because the NFL did not want to merge with them. They had to. When they decided to go with the Super Bowl to determine which league is the best, it was Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And the NFL won the first two Super Bowls thanks to Vince Lombardi. He saved the NFL. Because if he wouldn't have saved the NFL, there wouldn't be no such thing as the NFL. It would be called the AFL. But the first two games went to the NFL by a big margin. And they didn't want to merge. The NFL did not want to merge with them. But the AFL kept knocking on the door. And the third Super Bowl is when Joe Namath, that's why Joe Namath is in the Hall of Fame today, he promised them that they would whoop the NFL. And they did. And that made recognition of the AFL, but the NFL people said it was a lucky game. But the next year, in Super Bowl IV, it was Otis Taylor, right here out of Houston, Texas, and the Kansas City Chiefs, because at this time, the Kansas City Chiefs, they decided to move out of Dallas. And they did not, and because remember, it was called the Dallas Texans when the Lamar Hunt had the team. So he left the Texan name up to be bought. And he decided to name the team that moved out of Dallas and moved to Kansas City, and he decided to call it the Kansas City Chiefs. And therefore, when the Kansas City Chiefs wound up winning Super Bowl IV, the NFL knew then that the AFL was here to stay, and they finally merged together in '65, and they came up with the name Super Bowl. But the bottom line is it all started down here in Texas, and it all started in Dallas. Because, like I said, Houston did not want to be that gangster type town like Chicago or New York or Detroit. They wanted to be a laid back city. But time brings along a change, and we'll go into that the next chapter of Untold History. Thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you so much, Facebook family, for everything that y'all do to show me that y'all really enjoy this historical editorial that I do. God bless you and your family, and most of all, you and your family have a blessed Thanksgiving.